It's a very special, budget special polling station with Johnny Ward and William Kedjanyi, who quite clearly is outside Parliament buildings, William Kedjanyi, in which are going to update us on all the various budgetary announcements, but also a lot of budgetary bingo.
Yes, indeed. We had buzzword bingo. Really, really interesting set of results. Quite a few unfortunate beats. For example, say we had reckless borrowing and unfunded pledges. Reckless borrowing being a 6-4 shot, or actually 11-8, I should say. Unfunded pledges being a 6-4 shot. Guess what the Chancellor actually said? The whole phrase.
What did he say?
He said reckless unfunded pledges. So I think about the worst of a number of bad beats, which also did include Brexit's not being mentioned, despite the fact it was 4-7 and then went to freeze on. Hardworking families, a staple of pretty much every Chancellor since Osborne, didn't make it in either. We did have climate change, which was 4-11. We had cost of a pint instead of price of a pint. I cannot yet confirm that was a bad beat, however, as we might settle in favour.
Okay.
So
this is an evolving situation.
It is indeed. As is always the case with budgets, there always tends to be more data that comes out afterwards. And the picture becomes a bit clearer as time moves on. But very much an evolving situation. Really good interest on the market, which I was pleased with, considering that we went up with it at 8 a.m. today. And as I speak to you, it's just past 5.
Why didn't he mention Brexit?
I would imagine it's a narrative thing, and he's just trying to push on with it. He wants his budget to be forward-looking and to be optimistic, Rishi Sunak here. And I imagine also Boris Johnson's just fine with that for now. So I don't think there was much keenness to mention, despite the fact that Sunak, ironically, did acknowledge massive supply chain issues. He did acknowledge them. I mean, he said they weren't going to be fixed overnight. Very different from the rhetoric that the Prime Minister was using in Manchester when he said he expected these problems to be temporary, that he wasn't worried. And it turns out now that everybody is very worried. So Sunak is probably closer to reality and the land of the living on that front.
So he called Boris's bluff?
Not to a point. That's just how he works. That's how Boris works, really. That's how Johnson works. I think it was interesting, the budget, because it was a imperfect marriage of sort of two factors. One of them being sort of this need for optimism and hope for the future for Britain, and confidence and a big investment and some big spending plans. I noticed a lot more on skills and infrastructure. And on the other half, there was this sort of really interesting, ideologically quite awkward end to the speech, where Sunak essentially said he didn't want to live in a country where people just turn to the government for help, which was a strange thing, I think, for the finance minister of any government, of any serious nation to say. I must admit, just as a bit of a personal opinion, unimpressed with the net zero plans, unimpressed with cutting duties on short-haul flights. Scrapping a rise in fuel duty I can understand. Motorists have had it in the neck. Many of them will vote Tory. I think the cost of living is going to be a real issue for them this winter. But the news regarding HS2 is not good. And I think the man in the streets does like to point at it as a white elephant. But in reality, if we're going to get anywhere close to our climate targets, we need a modal shift away from driving, and I don't see any way to do it apart from HS2, given the state of the trains in this country.
Yeah, we didn't get obviously a reaction from Keir Starmer because he's been rocked with the coronavirus. What has the general Labour reaction been?
That the budget doesn't quite do enough really for working families, that the universal credit taper, whilst a nice idea and a nice sort of announcement, it doesn't really leave people £1,000 better off. It's more like 250 quid over the course of a year, depending on how much work you're doing. The national minimum wage probably should be about 10. I think Rachel Reeves and Labour have found themselves outflanked to a point. I think they have found themselves pushed or beaten to the punch when it comes to the national minimum wage, albeit it's in the government's power to do that, not the opposition's. That aside, I think the net zero stuff got a lot of attention. I think the flight stuff got a lot of attention.
Well, it's controversial, to put it mildly.
Yeah, it is. And also, as I stand here, we are 3 days, or when you're reading this, so maybe 2 days or even a day away from COP26, the big climate change summit. It was quite a move, to be honest with you. I didn't hear anything specifically mentioned about regions. It was all about skills when it came to levelling up, which was interesting, I thought. Given that we were only 7-4 for Northern Powerhouse, to be mentioned. I'll need to double check the transcript, but I don't think it was. And that surprised me quite a bit.
Just looking at the key points from the perspective of the BBC website, inflation in September was 3.1%, is likely to rise to average 4% this year. UK economy forecasts return to pre-COVID levels by 2022, and annual growth set to rebound by 6.5% this year. And by hook or by crook, the government, I guess, is going to benefit from the fact that the economy is coming out of this better than one would have expected. Yeah,
massively, and that gave Sunak some much needed headroom for, I think, some of the stuff he invested into skills today. They will very much be hoping that continues. They'll desperately be hoping they don't need to implement any measures more than they do now, which means that the boosted jab program and the vaccination program for children is once again the single most important healthcare policy, project, plan, or whatever you want to do, or whatever you want to call it in this country. As will the flu jab as well. It'll be massive because flu is on the rise after a winter where, broadly speaking, we were all kept away from each other. Now I think it's very much the case that the tolerance for that is gone, I think. So it will be very difficult, I think, to impose more severe restrictions than Plan B. And nobody wants that. So it remains to be seen where we go with that, but definitely inflation's a worry. I think it's one of the few things that does really worry Sunak. I mean, also generally the cost of living too. It's going to be a real crunch. And the national minimum wage stuff is all well and good, but inflation could bust that, number one, and also it's next April. Doesn't change the situation this winter.
Any movement in terms of his price to replace Boris? He's 5-2, which I believe is steady.
He's 5-2. That's steady. In fact, actually, a bit of behind the scenes stuff here because the board fell down whilst I was talking to you. So this is really live and unscripted, folks. We don't plan this.
No, look at this.
But I'm going to change the camera around. Tap that. Do that. And you'll see there. It's like a bit of a battering, to be fair, but don't worry. It's been through worse. A nice soft landing. But he is 5-2. That's steady. He's not 4-1 to the next Tory leader. That my odds man got the price wrong on that. He's 2-1. And he's supposed to be 7-4 for the next election to be in 2023, which is probably the last we'll see of the board. I'd imagine.
Are you actually laying bets there, or is it more of a promotional thing?
Promotional thing. Funny, actually, the Met asked me that, and I was very nearly. I got background checked today, by the way. Right. They ran a scan and everything. Because I've just moved up here, and no bets were taken. You're not trading. However, I can tell you where we are trading: starsports.bet/politics. Go there for all the very best and specials. And also, on the last final note, Johnny, guess where I really am?
Where are you?
I'm gonna whiz the camera around, turn the other way. This here is badly obscured by the trees, but it is for Millbank, which is where all of the BBC's political content, or nearly all of it, is created, thought of, and produced. And we, of course, have a market to be the next BBC political editor, which has seen some great press and done some great numbers so far. All the contenders were here earlier filming their packages. They're now in the edit suites, getting it together, getting it ready for 6. For those of you watching in Ireland, this is basically sort of, I don't know where the RTE broadcasting house or where RTE are based, but this is basically where RTE would do their thing if you had an equivalent. So in that market, as I give you the House of Parliament, It is John Sopel, who's 15-8, Amal Rajan's 4-1, Vicky Young's 9-2, Emily Maitlis and Lewis Goodall are both at 7s. Then you have Adam Fleming, who's just ahead of him at 6s. That's hotting up a bit now, that market. We're getting shorter on quite a few, and quite a few others are going out. Tends to be the BBC people are getting back, which makes sense. Interesting drifter, Alex Forsyth, 12-1, highly rated political correspondent. Very much, I think, liked and respected at the BBC. I think she'd be a horrendous appointment. And in terms of other interesting bits and pieces in that market, we've had so many requests and so many additions. But generally speaking, outside of Emma Vardy and Emma Barnett, who are both 12s, I think we're seeing a bit of a shift in the market now towards the head of the market, towards those leading contenders, I should say.
So I obviously should have mentioned your impeccable Jon Snow-esque pickle and pie there, which looks very well. But my final question is, did you actually appear on television today?
No, unfortunately, despite my very best efforts. And thank you very much to all the cameramen and producers who did entertain me. We nearly got Paul Johnson from the Institute for Fiscal Studies to do this, but very annoyingly, he had to go after doing an interview with Beth Rigby of Sky, who we love, and who, if she accepts, will be considered an honorary friend of the show, of course.
Thank you for your time, William.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine today.
Yeah, we always love to be on location, particularly when the Star Sports betting board just falls over, something that William Kedjanyi never does. And we shall be back next week. There we are in all its glory.
See you later. Thanks for watching.